Hello and welcome to Devlog video number 3. So we're just going to get right into this. This is going to be a fairly large video update since I am like a month and a half behind, so there's plenty of stuff to go over. So I'll see what I can just kind of skim through. So I've generated LODs, level of details, for the village houses so that they scale down in quality the further you are away, the further you are from them. That way you get a nice performance increase from them. We created the armor entries, by we I mean me. I created the armor entries for steel, carbon, zinc, adamantium, mithril, and set up some descriptions. So now, each of the items have fancy little description, etc., etc. I've created all the armor icons for tin through mithril. While I did do this, I've changed all the models they use, so that's actually something I have to do all over again that I have not yet done. So you can ignore that one. I finished moving buffs over to the new buffs component and updated all outside logic to point to the new component. So it's just a way to keep things way more organized, right? So you don't have just open up a blueprint, you've got code from 20 different types of systems all in one area, and even if you can space them out and color code them, they're still all there. You open it up and it's just everywhere. But if it's in its own component, I can just add that component onto any other blueprint that exists, whether it's a character or anything, and just call to that component and call those functions or events. So it's a great way to really organize things. Then I did a bug fix. All right, some staff recipes were somehow getting skipped during saving. So digging into the issue, I found I had used a specific amount of entries to ignore, right? So the default recipes, they can ignore, they don't need to be saved because when you join, it just gives them back to you. When saving recipes to the database, and I had removed 2 recipes from existence, and thus the original number to skip was still being used. So if it knew to skip 8, and then I removed 2 of those 8, now it knew it should be 6, right? But it was still doing 8. So 2 of your own recipes from the database that should be saved were not being saved. So I've updated the logic to now just get the last entry of the class defaults so that no matter how much I change it in the future, it'll all add up correctly. So that was a nice little fix there. I added experience entries for dodge level 151 to 500. That was annoying, but it's done. I increased some skills from level 50 to level 100, like swordsmithing, for example. Although the materials don't exist to give a higher experience cutoff point, so that max level can't yet be reached, right? Because if your experience cuts off and you need to use the next level ingot, well, it doesn't exist, so you can't actually raise your level much higher than whatever that may be. I've modified the geomancy skill logic to use a calculation rather than an array of experience at X level, testing how this works out for a while before I possibly convert all the others. So it's way easier to work with a calculation than inputting experience amounts for every X level, right? So level 10 is 10 times 10 times 100. That's how much experience you need. So I need to input that for entry number 10. Level 11, 11 times 11 times 100, input that outcome into the level 11 slot, but now it just uses a simple calculation as the next level needed, or the experience needed. So all I have to do is put in what I want the cap to be. So caps at 50, caps at 100, caps at 500, whatever. So that will save me loads of time. I'm just kind of experimenting with that right now just to see how it plays out. So far it's looking pretty good, so I may convert all the other skill level systems to use a calculation rather than an entry of how much experience is required. That also helps in the sense that in the future, if I change the calculation of level times 100 to something else, well, I'd have to go through every last entry and update the experience required. Whereas if it just use a calculation for that too, then I don't have to update anything. So it just seems like the smarter thing to do there. So moving on, I increased the geomancy max level from 100 to 300. I have fixed the crafting widget being draggable outside of its bounds. Basically that means if I moved the crafting widget, dragged it, I'm not actually, I honestly, I don't really remember what I did there. But whatever it is, it's on here, so. Moving on, modified the crafting widget layout a bit, so started using a scale box function to help with scaling when resolution changed. So now it scales much more nicely, and before it didn't. It sometimes looked like crap, other times it only scaled so small or so big. Now it actually just looks way better. I have tweaked weapon crafting levels from learning recipes every 5 levels to every 10 levels. Recipes were being learned too quick, and now that I've increased the max levels as well, it just makes sense to spread it out a little bit more. So I've tweaked the staff crafting levels from learning recipes every 5 levels to every 10 levels. Tweaked the staff charges. Right, so when you make a staff, how many charges it has. Previously, all staffs were 25 charges. Now, for a pine staff, you only get 10 charges, right? It's pretty low. But you likely aren't going to be using them for very long. But there's another thing to go with this, too. Spruce will get 15 charges, or durability. Birch is 20, oak is 30, onyx 40, and elm at 50. Alright, so a little more on this, since I didn't mention it in this bullet. I might not have done it at this point in time. You can now include a plain heart gem, which acts as a sort of heart to the staff. Basically, it adds 100 charges to whatever you added it to. So if it was a pine, you now have 110. Right? If it was a spruce, you have 115. It's adding 100 because you used that stone or that plain heart gem. And I may tweak it further where you use a marble gem and you get 150, or you use, just increase it by 50 for each higher gem that you use, higher tier gem. But currently it's just the plain heart gems right now. I tweaked the den staff recipes, right? They require a plain heart gem. So anytime you make, okay, so I did mention it in here. So when you make a normal version of the staff, a pine slowing staff as an example, it'll have the 10 charges. But if you make a den pine slowing staff that requires a plain heart gem, is how the recipe goes for now, but it also gains that extra 100 charges. I might eventually add to where you can even make a pine slowing staff, but include a heart gem, so you get 110 charges. Because as you know, the normal non-den versions are single target only. Den hits everyone in radius. Tweaked den staff items, they now have plus 100 charges, plus their default amount. Yep, we already went over that. Okay, so that was one little segment. Move on to this one. I've created a structure for all the item stats and set them up as floats where needed. That's more my side stuff. Changed over many of the stats to use the new structure. I deleted all the old stats that were non-structured, so that all that's to go with the same thing. I tweaked totem logic. Before change, they would use armor stat as the totem's power level, and logic would check this value versus the type of totem you are making. And then if toughness, multiply totem power by X amount, and that's the armor it gives, since toughness gives armor. Now, however, I can have I'm not sure I can set up each individual totem type to have a specific stat. So wood totem armor is equal to 1, HP regen equals 1%, etc. Stone totem can be armor gives 5%, and HP regen is 3%. This means every single totem type can have unique values that are not based upon a single calculation. As an example, if a toughness pumpkin totem and a toughness undead totem are equal power, pumpkin can have 2 times the armor value, or any value I choose. Much less limits now. To go with this change, all unimbued totems now show all their possible stats. Wood totem will show its armor, strength, accuracy, HP regen, etc., so you know what value it'll end up as when you create that version of an imbued totem. So more on that. We'll take a quick little look. Let's see if I have some totems. I do. So you can see when you hover over a unimbued totem, it tells me that it's the reindeer totem, and it has 25 armor, has plus 16 strength, plus 75 accuracy. So it's not giving you all of that. It's giving you one of those, depending on what you imbue this as. If I want this to be a health or a health healing totem, it would give me the plus 8.5% health regen. If I wanted this to be a toughness, so you can see the toughness totem just gives me the armor. The strength totem just gives me the strength. Quickness will give you attack speed and movement speed. Healing is your health regen, and accuracy is accuracy. So don't let that confuse you. That's just to show you its potential of what it can give you, but it's unimbued. It's one of those stats, not all of them. Moving back. Alright, so, and it's nice having that ability now to where if I want to make a new totem, it's not going to be one specific stat and it gives you, whatever I set it up for. It might be a little confusing to understand that, but it's much more versatile now, and it has more options. So I've updated most of the items in the database to restore their stat values. I'm actually not sure what I mean by that. I've tweaked buffs, attack speed, and move speed to not use decimal values, but instead use whole values. 0.1 is 10%. Now 10%, or 10 equals 10%. Right? Just to make things a little bit easier for me on my side, so I can not confuse things, so that it's easier to work with in existing logic. I tweaked the user interface. I changed run speed from move speed plus 25% to move speed 125%, right? Because your base is 100%. And then now it's going to show us the total that you have all together. That way, if there's ever any kind of debuffs that, make you lose 80% of your move speed, stuff like that will actually show accordingly what you should be at as a total. Alright, so then I added a Naga character, I added the Anubis character, added Drake characters, added a quest plugin to experiment with, which that one bombed. I removed the original quest.h and CPP files that were no longer used, which were conflicting with the quest plugin from being built. That's all my side stuff. Created some new quest tasks. I spent probably a good almost 2 weeks experimenting with this new quest system, and it was a complete waste of time. I fixed the quest bug. Yeah, it doesn't matter because it's been gutted out. So then I gutted out the whole quest and dialogue system, so this is like 2 weeks later for this quest stuff, due to far too much of it being locked away in C++ and not exposed to Blueprint. I didn't really have the control that I wanted to be able to tweak things the way I wanted to, because they were hard locked in C++, and I don't know C++ code, so it was not easy. Not to mention there were loads of different files for the C++ that were referencing back and forth. It was not easy to get things working the way I wanted, so I just ripped the whole thing out and ended up later buying a much more expensive advanced one that I have not yet experimented with. So we got a bug fix. I fixed the health regen text showing 8.5% regen as 850%, as well as actually healing for 850%. So that was a little calculation I forgot to update that I fixed. I then fixed Spirit Realm map splines having been reset from a crash. I reverted the map back to a copy from a couple versions ago to restore them. Luckily, I hadn't made any changes in that map, so a couple versions back was good enough to restore it with. I set up the blacksmith character and the animations. I set up the NPC humans to have tier stats of 0.20, 0.20, 0.20 for attack, defense, and health, as well as to now scale their default stats based on their tier for each level. Now I don't have to think up what stats they should be at whatever level, and they'll follow similar stats to the enemy AIs in the world. Humans are basically much weaker than enemies when it comes to their stats. A Meitai, I may tie this into the player as scalable stats that can be increased. It will also increase your player's stats. This will require much more thinking at a later time. So basically, you level up, right? You're level 1, you have 200 health. You level up to 2, and now you have 210 health. You level up to 3, now you have 220 health, so it goes up by 10 health each level, right? That's because it's taking your health, and it's using this 0.20 as your, the 0.20 here as your health modifier, doing some calculating with it, and then comes out that plus 10 is what you get. So every level plus 10 on top. Next level plus 10 on top of that. So it just goes up by 10 health per level, right? So when you age your character, all of these will go up by 0.5. So your attack, your defense, and your health modifier will go to 0.25 at age 1. Age 2, it'll be 0.30. Age 3, 0.35. So when it does that, it's going to recalculate your health, your attack, and your defense, your stamina as well. I've added stamina into the calculation. So you're going to see a nice jump up in your health and all that. The enemies in the world work on the same logic, right? They have hard-coded stats. A tier 1 creature like a Slithis has a 0.20, a 0.25, and a 0.30. A tier 2 has a 0.25, 0.30, 0.35. A tier 3 has 0.30, 0.35, 0.40. So it goes up by 0.5 for each tier. They all have a minimum point, like for a tier 1 has a minimum 0.20, he has a mid 0.25, and he has a high of 0.30. So it'll be not randomly selected, like a Slithis Minotaur race might have high attack. So they probably have a 0.30 here. And then since 0.30 has already been used up, they only have 0.25 and 0.20 left. Right? So maybe their defense is the 0.25 that would be here at 0.25. And then their health being lower at 0.20. So a tier 2 creature is going to use just 0.5 minimum to each, whatever their tier was before. So since the Slithis was a 0.30, he'd now be a 0.35 for the common Minotaur, a tier 2. That might be a little confusing, but it's all a balance type system that just makes it easy for me to just simply punch in the level I want them to be at. It calculates the rest, because I've set up their level 1 as, they start at whatever health, they start at whatever attack and whatever defense, and it scales it all accordingly from there. So then I could just come in and say, okay, I want this guy to be level 500. Well, it's going to take that starting health that he has, his starting attack, his starting defense, multiply it by his level, and multiply it by the modifier that it should be, and add that all together. So moving on, I set up the town mage, the trader mage, the general trader, and a basic villager characters, right? Blueprints and animation trees. That way we can actually have them set up, which you can see those guys right here. So we've got the blacksmith here, and we have like a general merchant here. So if I hop into here, click on one of these guys, that's Blacksmith Carl, and that's just a general trader. That's a bug I need to fix. I don't know why it does that. So if I right click on the general trader, you got my shop items. What was that? Oh yeah. So you got your different like healing items. Those are experimental right now. Haven't been balanced, so I don't know if they're too low or too high just yet. And then we have our blacksmith, right?
Help you?
Blacksmith, you got your ingots. You got your tin chaos sword, which probably won't be in there because you're supposed to craft them. But I might leave it in there. I don't know yet. And then you have your starter blades. You start with a bone dagger, but you have to buy a bone sword at level 5 or a worn blade at level 10. And then you can craft your own tin and aluminum, etc. chaos swords. So moving on. We replaced each town's blacksmith and general trader or mage trader and town mage with the new ones. I created and set up alternate texture parent materials for the NPCs, blacksmith, town mage, trader, all the characters that using my own newly added color modifier. Basically, and it definitely took some time. You'll see that let me open it up real quick. I think yeah, it should be this one. So you can see that it uses the textures, right? Well, when I purchased this asset, it had dedicated color textures. So you had a full green suit for the clothing and stuff, and then you didn't have a mask or a mask 2. You only had base color and normal, right? I tweaked the blueprint logic, added 2 masks and 2 colors. So now, and then I basically went through and exported out the basic color texture, turned certain things grayscale or white, and then I left like the things that I didn't want color changing alone, because you don't want to color change the leather pouches and such. So then I made copies of those and made them either black and white or white and black, depending on what colors I wanted to change. So now it gave me full access to just come in here and change whatever colors I want them to be, to make it way more easier. And I had previously posted pictures of all this too, so you guys have actually seen that before. So I replaced each town. I think that's what I just read off. Yeah. I created and set up alternate texture parent materials. So yeah, I just showed that. I changed all existing general traders on the main map to point to the new mage traders. Basically just updates on the main world map. I modified the project's default engine settings to add a segment for RVT textures to fix the blurred textures. You guys probably never noticed it before, but sometimes when I would zoom out, things would get blurry, slightly blurry, and when I'd zoom in, sometimes they would stay a little bit kind of fuzzy or blurry. That's been fixed with the new settings that I added in there, so things aren't so horrible looking now. Alright. Okay, next segment, I set up the player's HP stat factor logic. Max HP now scales with character, and I talked about this earlier, scales with character level. Stat factors will raise for each age or tier the player evolves into. Players can raise their age at level 100, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 1000. Player level is reset back to level 1 upon aging, and their factor gains 0.05 or 0.5, which means higher scaling stats for your health, attack, and defense. Aging is not required, and players can continue leveling up past the age level required, but will miss out on the increased stats until they decide to age. Plans for unique new quests unlocking in all villages will pop up based on player tier, may build in level carryover of some form, so I probably won't do this, the reset. I'll probably just, the moment you go in age, all of your health, defense, and attack, your base attack, base defense, are recalculated based on the new modifier from 0.20 at age 0, remember we talked about that earlier, to 0.25, right? Age 2, 0.30, age 3, 0.35. So every time you age, you'll see that boost in health, defense, and attack. Basically how it is in Blade Mistress, where you age and you just got a nice boost to health. So I set up a player's defense stat factor logic. Your innate defense will add together with your equipment armor stat and give you a total amount of damage reducted. Just as the other factor stats, it'll climb with your level and climb by higher amounts with a higher factor, or aging. So you have a base defense, right? You age, your base defense goes up. You age again, your base defense goes up based on your level and your age. And it just gets added to whatever equipment you have equipped. So it knows that, if your armor gives you 100 defense total and you're level 1, and level 1s by default give you 5 defense, then you'd have 105. Just example numbers. So I then set up player stamina stat factor logic. Your max stamina will climb just as the other factor stats. As your level raises, so does your stamina. With the current set stamina factors, you can expect roughly the following increase to your max stamina per level. Age 0, you get 5 stamina extra per level. So I think you start at 100 stamina, level 1, and then at level 2 you'd have 105. Level 3, 110, 115, 120, 120, so on and so forth. But if your age was 1, you actually go up by 7.5 per level, so it'll recalculate what it should be at based on if every level gave you 7.5. At age 2, you get 10, age 3 you get 12.5, so it'll just continue, you'll get those nice boosts every time you age. Stamina climbs much more slowly than all the other stats, such as health, attack, and defense. So you get more for health, and not as high an amount for attack, obviously, than health, but you'll still get it, more than what you're getting here for your stamina. Because stamina is, you're not meant to have tons of stamina, but it will go up. I set up players' attack stat factor logic. Your base attack will climb just as the other factor stats. Same thing, basically. And it adds to your total damage from your weapons or buffs or whatever. I fixed a merchant sale item would give the player the item at its sale price as its value when it should have been the item's main value. Example, dragon scale on sale from 100,000 gold to 50,000 gold. Upon purchase, the scale in player inventory would only be worth 50,000 gold, but upon relogin or map change, it would correctly be back at 100,000. So basically, I can have shops selling items for scales for 100,000, right? But then they have a special sale going on where you can buy up to 20 of them for 50,000. Well, you buy all of those, and you could sell them back for only 50,000 as well, the same price you bought them for. But then you log out and log back in or change map, now they're worth 100,000. So basically I've fixed that to where if he's got them on sale for 50k, you could sell it right back to him for 100k. Basically like a quick little profit, obviously that system needs a little bit more work. I still need to build in trader rates so that you only get 70% of its value back when you sell something. But more on that later. I fixed legs mesh clipping through the leg armor, set up to remove legs mesh when leg armor is equipped and re-equip legs when no leg armor is equipped. That was with the old armor, so that doesn't really matter anymore. I added leather armor listing and changed 10 armor values to double what leather was. Leather armor is meant to be the first free armor given to the start. We no longer have leather. We have the bandit armor now, so another negligible thing. I made health regen default value 1%. Add to the total value granted from totems. As an example, if a leather totem gives you 0.75% regen, so almost 1%, default regen is 1%, but when equipping the leather healing totem, you'd have a total value of 0.75, when it should have been 1.75, right? Should have added together with your base, not overridden as the new base, or as the total. So then I tweaked evasion logic to be more similar to Blade Mistress. Getting hit constantly from enemies that are higher level than you 100% of the time is far too much. It's far too much considering all the scaling damage system I made. So basically I had previously tweaked a long time ago I tweaked it so that anytime the AI was over your level 100% of the time you would get hit, and that scales down up to 100 levels below. So a creature that was 10 levels below you still hit you 90% of the time. If he was 50 levels below you, he hit you 50% of the time. So with all the tweaking I did to damage values and armors and stuff, getting hit 100% of the time was it was too hard to kind of, to survive anywhere. And the balance wasn't quite there. It was making it much harder to balance altogether. So I've tweaked it back to how Blade Mistress is. Basically, if an AI is 10 levels above you, you dodge 5% of the time, capped at 5 minimum, right? So if the AI is 9 levels above you, you dodge 10% of the time. If they are 2 levels above you, you dodge 80% of the time. So this is so that no matter what, you still have a small chance. This is capped at 5% minimum. You always have that. It's capped in both sides, on the low tier and the high tier. So you always have a 5% chance to dodge. You know, you might get lucky. You might get a lucky dodge in there. But the same thing could be said for the enemies. The AI is 0 levels above you, right? They're your own level. You dodge 95% of the time. It's capped at 95% max. So they might still get a lucky hit on you. That's at 5%. So, I mean, 5% is really low, though, so you're not going to see yourself get hit very often. So I added in more food items, as well as tweaked the values of how much health is healed from each food item. And I added those food items to the general merchant, so you saw that a little earlier when I was in play. Alright, so next segment. I've created the level requirement entry for items and hooked it up for tooltips as well. Set some level requirements for food, potions, armors, and swords. So you can't just equip the best armor in the game at a low level and expect easy streak for the whole game. Like, that just doesn't make sense. Because it's a game after all, so there needs to be limiters in place. And you shouldn't be able to use the best potion or food in the game right off the bat because, again, easy streak. It doesn't make sense. Added in, it destroys the balance of the game. So anybody that has a problem with that, that's not something I'm willing to look past. Any game you play today has level requirements. So moving on, added in 2 basic starter swords. One you start with and one you can purchase, and you saw that earlier. I actually added 2 you can purchase from the merchant. I tweaked the damage amounts to be higher for each weapon metal type. 10 starts at 30 damage, and each metal type climbs by 30. So 30 for tin, 60 for aluminum, 90 for steel, 120 for carbon, etc., etc. It just goes up by 30 as the base for each one. Modified upgrading weapon logic to use an actual widget for upgrading. This will be more versatile and allow any extra info I may want to add to the screen, such as fail chance, not implemented. It is now. And I'll show you that in a sec. I modified the upgraded versions of weapons by extending them from +2 all the way up to +10. Each upgrade will add more damage to that weapon. This means a +0 tin sword at 30 damage, while a +10 tin sword would be at 105 damage. Every +4, this should actually be +5 because I changed it, is basically the next metal type. So a tin at +5 is the same damage as in an aluminum +0. And a tin +10 would be equal to a steel +0. So this would mean a let's see, all the way to +10, this would mean at +8, no, it should be +10. Tin sword, that's equivalent to steel. 10, no, wouldn't it be aluminum? Yeah. Aluminum at +0. Mithril at +8 is equivalent to elat. So Viz and elat. So that should be +10. It's equivalent to elat at +0. Yeah. Okay. I added a bunch more logic to the upgrade widget to help combat loss of items. Added in, so basically, you know, if your inventory gets full while you're mid-upgrade somehow, you know, or maybe you're trying to see if you can't force it to glitch out by constantly moving items and hoping that you can dupe your item or something. I built in logic to detect whether or not you even have the space or the item's now missing, and to cancel the upgrade and restore the lost items that it did consume, if it did consume any. Now if you're trying to force it to mess up, there's a chance you don't get back your items recovered, because obviously you're moving shit around when you shouldn't be. You're doing something you shouldn't be doing. You know, just if you're going to upgrade an item, stick with upgrading the item. Don't sit there and try to move stuff constantly or use macros to constantly move stuff to see if you can't cheese it, because you're just going to hurt yourself in the end. I added in helper functions 2 for things such as wrong upgrade item in the upgrade slot versus the item you're trying to upgrade. And then in the upgrade window, I spruced up to match the style of all the other windows. So I gave it, matching textures and such to match everything else. Upgrade window, I added a result area that now shows the resulting item if you do upgrade it. I got a bug fix for drag and dropping an item onto your equip slot would override level requirement checking. I added in a check level. So basically it works in 2 different ways. When you right click an item, it immediately equips it, right? But if you drag and drop, it equips it in a different way. It does a swap rather than it's interesting the way it works. But you can see I got 2 different error messages because it uses 2 different types of systems for swapping versus just right clicking and using it. So I added in a check. Before it would ignore the level requirement, and I could just drop it here and bam, it's equipped, ignoring the level requirement, but now it doesn't. So let's take a look at upgrade widget, right? So we have our armor upgrade item, and we have our weapon upgrade item. If I right click on either one of these, it'll bring up the upgrade menu. And depending on which one I right click, it'll automatically fill in with its information. So it tells me I need 0 of them plus whatever item I want to upgrade, and it'll show me the result of what it will upgrade to, as well as the chance to succeed. So in this case, let's upgrade, let's unequip my bone sword, let's just try that, right? It tells me that item cannot be upgraded, so that is not an upgradable item. But all the main, so that's because this is like, this is a starter blade, you can just use a level 10 weapon when you're ready, and then at level 15 you could use one of the others, and then at level 20 you can start using your crafted weapons. So we have a 10 chaos sword that's plus 0, right? It's no upgrade. I drop it here, and sure enough, it tells me now it's updated. I need 1 of those. I have 2,800, I got plenty. And my chance to succeed is 100%. If I hover over that, you see it's a plus 0, it'll become a plus 1. The damage is 30 there, damage is 37, plus strength is nothing here, but here I get plus 0.2 strength. So not only is my damage going up, but my strength modifier is going up too. And you can see here my strength is at 1.5%, which gives me plus 0 damage. So it doesn't modify it enough there, because I don't have a lot of total damage. But if I were to equip like that, it's still not high enough to really get 1.5% out of much of that. So let's go ahead and craft that. It tells me upgrade success, and now it automatically put the item back in here as well, or put a copy of it, a reference to it, right there. So it's a plus 1, and now it'll tell me a plus 2 will give me those stats. My chance to succeed is only 90% now. So it succeeded, now it's 80. Succeeded, now it's 70. Again, oh, I got lucky. Oh, I got very lucky. And so I have a 40% chance to take this plus 6 to a plus 7. Wow, I'm getting super lucky with these. Oh, there we go. So when it fails, it will consume, I got an 80% chance to consume 1 of these. Not all 3, but 1. So it takes 3. So I have 2,813. So 813, it failed. I didn't consume 1, so that's nice. Oh wait, no, it succeeded, didn't it? Yeah, it succeeded. Wow. Let's try again. So at 813, that's not right, is it? Yeah, I don't think so. So look, I already found something I need to update. I'm at 27, we'll look at the one that's right here. I'm at 2799, and it succeeded, okay. At 20% chance, I'm getting lucky with these. So I have 2796, failed, 2796, it did not consume 1. Now it consumed one on that failure. Did not consume. Consumed. Did not. Did. Did. So you can see it'll, at 10%, it's hard to get that final. And there we go. And then once it knows that the item you were upgrading no longer has any upgrades left, in other words, cannot be upgraded, it just clears your slot. Okay, moving on. We have message warnings. I added in message warnings when trying to equip an item into the wrong slot. You saw that earlier. The bug fix for drag dropping from bank into an equip slot that was skipping some logic. Dug into it further and fixed some issues that were going on with dynamic item info not set up for containers. It's only set up for inventory items. So that's, with the bank stuff. I'm not sure if I had previously showed anything with the bank. This right here is a bank. So if I right click it, I've got, my bank slots where I can put any items I want. So you can actually, like this belt, if I right click it to unequip it, if the bank's open, it'll put it straight in the bank. And then if, I can just, actually no, so when you right click it from here, it's not going to equip to you directly, it's going to put it in your inventory. But if I right click it from here, my bank's open, it'll put it right in there. So same thing, if I right click it or right click it while the bank's open, instant deposit. So what it was saying, what I meant by that bug fix was if I were to drag and drop here and it equipped it, it was having some kind of weird problems where it would stay behind and not correctly clear it, or I don't know, it was too long ago to really remember for sure. It's supposed to be the bandit belt. So close that bank. There we go. Alright, so next segment, we got a bug fix. Upon your death, if the enemy was bound in place, they would begin walking, or so if you used a den freezing or freezing staff and bound them in place with ice, they would begin walking around to a new waypoint, even though they were supposed to be bound. This is upon your death, right? So now I've added in a bound check when changing to walking around logic. So that before it even begins to walk around and choose a new waypoint, it'll check, am I bound? Yes. Don't, skip the logic. If not, okay, go ahead and save to move around. I've added in the enhancer items, armor and weapon enhancer, to the rare list of drops. So elites have a higher chance to drop, while bosses have an even higher chance to drop. All enemies can drop them, but the elites and bosses have, way better odds than everyday creatures. So you can mass farm mobs and still, get one at a really low odd. I think it was like 1% or 0.5% or something like that. I don't really quite recall what I set it to. Whereas the elites, Doc might drop one at 20% chance, and your sentinels drop them at 50% chance. So the best way to get them is geo-hopping, kill the sentinel and see what you get. And when it does drop them from a sentinel, it rolls for both, right? Rolls for the armor enhancer, 50% odds, then it rolls again for the weapon enhancer at 50% odds. So you can get both, or you can get one or the other, or none. So then we got a bug fix. The AI would sometimes get stuck around corners due to the navigation system needing to be slightly increased. They can still get stuck on each other when bunched up, but now no longer get stuck on the corners when not blocked by another AI. So they would be running around this corner to get to the other side, right? They'd get stuck right here. And this is because they were trying to walk too close to the edge. And there's no navigation for a tiny, small amount around the static meshes, so the walls. So I've increased it to where it goes a little bit further out with the navigation stuff so that it more smoothly goes around. It doesn't get stuck. Hopefully it fixed it. I didn't see any more issues, but you never know. So then the next segment, I set the leather armor upgrade info. Of course, leather armor is no longer a thing. Created 10 armor variants plus 1 through 10, and I set up the upgrade info and set up the armor values. I've updated descriptions for the enhancer items. And then the next segment, I upgraded from UE 5.1 to 5.2.1 in order for our quest and dialogue system to work. So that new $300 quest system that I had purchased wasn't working with 5.1. And so I spent, probably close to a week trying to get it to work in different ways, and eventually just upgraded to 5.3, and it still didn't quite work, or it did, but then something else broke. So then I went to 5.2.3 or 2.2 or something, and it didn't. One of the other things didn't work. So eventually I came across 5.2.1, where everything finally worked. I removed the scalable map asset, something we never tested using yet, but it was causing crashes in the upgraded 5.2. Luckily it wasn't in, set up at all, so it was easy to just remove it. I removed some GUI example widgets since they were causing crashes in the upgraded 5.2.1. No real loss there, there's only a couple things. I changed the movement component. So I had edited the C++ class of movement, but this meant that anytime I upgraded in the future, since the edit was to a core file on the Unreal Engine, anytime I upgraded to a new engine version, I'd lose those changes and I'd have to recreate them, which is just too much of a hassle. So I now just use some of the default variables that already exist. As an example, the walking speed has a crouch speed variable, right? Where if I have a game where you can crouch, it knows that when I change movement mode to crouch, change it to this variable speed. Well, we don't have crouch, and probably won't. And even if we did, I could code it in a different way to not use this crouch speed variable. So since we don't use it, I can use this variable for some logic to do with the running and walking, and that's what I did. That way there's no core changes to the C++. I added aluminum through mithril armors +1 through 10. I added enhancer armor and enhancer weapon items to the sentinel and the vagabond drop list. So I already told you earlier, farm your sentinels for 50% rates of drops, and the vagabonds can drop them as well. It's at lower odds because you get plenty of drops from vagabonds. Like if it's a 100 dropper vagabond, it's 100 chances that it could hit. I don't remember the exact odds, but it wasn't terribly lower because it's choosing a random item from the rare drop list as it is, because it has to land on either dust or oak, or I think it was oak staffs. Yeah, oak staffs or whatever. So if it lands on an upgrade item, then it rolls for the chance to give it to you, and if the chance fails to hit, then it rolls again for a different random item from that list. So it's I don't know, it's, you may see a lot, you may not see a lot of them from vagabonds. I haven't really given that much testing yet. I added in a new male and female character we are sticking to, right? So all those armors that I'd set up in the icons are useless because for the old male character there was never a female character to go with her, and you can't just grab any female character you want from the marketplace and just expect the assets that somebody made to fit perfectly with that same character. It doesn't quite work that way because some people create armors to match a certain pose for their own female character. So, and that's how our male character was. I tried using his armor for our new male character, and it did not line up at all, and there's no easy way to make it line up. I'd have to know how to edit the model itself outside in an alternate program. Honestly, it would just take months of my time to learn how to do, and I'm not that dedicated. I'll just use the new assets we have. So, ditch the old one. He's still in the project, and I am going to use his previous armors and him as the guard characters that walk around town, especially since I had already made the icons, and not that we'll be using those, but I already made the different colored variants of his armor. So tin has the copper looking look to it, aluminum has a more silvery look to it. It's the same armor, just reskinned different colors. That'll be perfect for the guards, so that you can actually see guards with different colored armors, like, oh, they're using the mithril armor over in this town or whatever. Okay, let's see. Added new male and female characters we are switching to. Not yet set up, although I did. The one we currently have is a male only and female is never released. Okay, so we added in a lot of armor sets for the new male and female characters. They are set up at this point. I added in some new enemy models and animations from the same creator as the male and female character from above. So some new like worm looking creatures, some slime creatures, a wolf, like an undead wolf looking creature. A lot of different new creatures that I got for a really good sale price that I could easily use at some point in the future. Alright, then we're into the new segment. I've set up the male character models with skin 1, which is the white skin, for default use. Nothing you need to worry about there. Right now there is no character customization. Eventually there will be, but for the first test for all of us, there won't. You know, you're a white guy, sorry. If you wanted to be black, green, blue, sorry, you're white. I retargeted all the new character models, armors, and body parts to use our default skeleton. You don't have to worry about that. Created noob clothes items, the peasant series. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure I posted a picture. Basically, it's just the clothing you start with. Just some very simple clothing items. I changed the leather armor into bandit armor and set up the skins. I changed the tin armor into our new tin armor, like the meshes that you have equipped. I renamed a lot of these skeletal names for players' equip slots. Again, this is not something you guys really have to worry about. That's more code side for me. I created all the logic for on-rep equip to call to these new skeletal slots. That's another me thing. Don't have to worry about it. And then is this the last segment? Yes. Yeah, so now we're finally almost up to current of our month and a half long since the last update. So I've added a new dragon asset to the project. He's not yet set up, but he does look pretty cool. Let's see. Pretty sure I have him in here. There's that undead wolf I was talking about. There it is. So this is the new dragon that I will be replacing our current dragons with. So we'll be using these new dragons. I'll probably set up that whole custom color modifier that I built. Just make it easier to color them without using so many texture files. So that one's pretty cool. Added 3 new armor sets to the project. I've created and set up all the armor sets, 10 through Malignant. So you guys have seen all those pictures already. That one took a good week and a half. I fixed a small bug with the player bank inventory size using the container's custom size when it should always use the player's custom size. So I'd open up a bank and it's only got 30 slots, but you're supposed to have 60 slots. You know, so it was cutting it off and throwing out some errors because it was trying to fill in items into slots that don't exist. So I've changed the logic to make sure it's getting the player's custom size, which the server knows. So maybe I use cash shop bank extenders. So by default, if you have 60 slots in your bank, now you have plus 10 every one that you use, and you can buy them for $1 or something. I don't know. Future ideas, who knows? Modified player's innate defense stat from 5 to 1. The 5 starting out was scaling to be way too much based on the player's age and character level. So it was throwing the balance off way too much to have a start of 5 versus 1, which is where I have it at now. So your innate defense, what you start the game with, is 1, and it does slowly scale as you level and based on your age. I put in a bug fix. The dodge level up XP reward to sea level wasn't being granted due to a failed casting when making the call. So I'm surprised it took me this long to notice that one, but fixed it. Bug fix. The AI were roaming way outside their perimeter locations. Even the sentinel came to say hello near dungeon start area. So I was, right here at the start. I was like right here, fighting some monsters, and the sentinels over here, he ended up coming all the way over here to say hello. So what was happening essentially was, let's say this dungeon layout had these walls blocked all the way through here, all the way through here, and then opened up here. So if I would have taken this path, I could have gotten straight to the sentinel. The sentinel couldn't get out any other way, right? It's all blocked off. So it chose, in his small radius of movement, say he can move all through here, and he wanted to move right here. It chose the random location here, but it's all blocked off. That means he now has a walking point to navigate all the way around here, all the way around here, and then through here where it's open to get all the way back over here into that spot where he can make it, right? But he couldn't make it there directly because of the wall. That's what was happening, is it wasn't detecting that he's out of range until it completed his move too. Then he gets, finally say he makes it here, and then his logic updates, oh, it's time to attack, and when you're attacking, it checks to make sure you're still in range. Well, clearly he was not in range. So he would, if he actually made it all the way over here, then yeah, he would still be in range. But if he was aggroed midway, like since I was right here, and he ran into me, and his logic updated, it then detected, oh, hey, I'm out of range, and he just immediately saw me and ran off back home. I mean, it was pretty funny, because I was chasing them down, but when they're running, you can't attack, they can't attack. So I fixed that to always check periodically every 3 seconds to see if you're outside your range, then run back to your spawn point. I updated the dust rates for weapons 10 through Malignant, so I increased and set up the upgraded version dust rates. So when you have a 25, 25, and 25 for red, blue, and white dust rates, the +1 version now has +25 to all of those. +2 version has +30 to all of those. So they just go up by 5 for every upgrade. And then each additional ingot type, the stronger, have much higher rates. So in-game weapon is going to be pretty efficient with dust rates, so you wouldn't have to worry too much, especially since you got to pound on a bunch of enemies for quite a lot longer because of their increased health. You don't want your dust being ate up that fast. I've added structure for upgrade items to have an amount required and a success chance. You saw that earlier when I was showing you the upgrade window. There's a success and fail chance, as well as how many of those upgrade items are required. I modified the upgrade window to show the required amount of enhancers plus the success chance. Oh, that was the structure, and then I modified it to make use of that structure. I also added that note that you guys saw at the bottom, warning that the failure has a high chance to consume a single enhancer. I modified the upgrade logic to account for X amount of upgrade item requirements. I added in the failure check as well as the upgrade item consumption on fail at 80% chance. I modified the upgrade window to now auto-update the information for the newly upgraded item if you succeed. So you saw that it would automatically repopulate your upgrade window with the item you were working on, but with the upgraded version now. In case you wanted to just keep upgrading it, you don't have to keep dragging and dropping it back into the upgrade window. Prior to this, it wouldn't update at all and still show incorrect items needed plus the incorrect item stats. So now it all just updates. And then I added in some new logic to the upgrade system, as well as organized and gave it a bit of a performance update. So that's all behind the scenes stuff. I spent like a day and a half working on just that, just getting it, solidly working and be more performance, and just the way that the inventory system works, where it places items in certain locations, and then if that location changed, now the upgrade would fail because it says the item's missing, but really it's just that the location of it had changed. So now it'll just check your whole inventory until it finds the matching item, and then not give you an error that it's missing when it's not. So that's basically it. Yeah, that's it. So from this point on, you can pretty much stop watching. unless you just kind of want to see a little bit of showcasing. So thanks for watching. If you're sticking around, then you can see a little bit of showcasing. Alright, so we're going to go and end it there. Looks like I need to update a little bit of the upgrade information to further upgrade some of my items. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. See you next time.